And so today, I'm sure Nicola needs no introduction. I imagine, know him from the past editions of Laplace's Human, but also from his work on Bayesian computation, which really spans from the Monte Carlo methods to also to the deterministic methods, expectation, variational Bayes, MCMC, and sequential Monte Carlo. He's also the originator of the in-law integratedness to Laplace approximation paper, which is I think the state-of-the-art tool for spatial statistics, and has a fantastic R package on. He's written amazing papers with cool titles like Leave Pima Indians Alone and EP as a Way of Life. He's also got a brand new book out, which is called An Introduction to Sequential Monte Carlo, which is also the topic of today's talk. So please tell us all about it, Nicola.
Thanks a lot, David, for a kind introduction. So my talk today, the title is a bit long, a bit pretentious, I'm sorry. But basically, I want to do two things at the same time. I'm going to explain. I will skip that, but I will go back to it in a minute. Basically, the first part of the talk, I like to give you a very high-level overview of SMC samplers. And I feel these methods are a bit overlooked in statistics and machine learning. So I like to, for those of you in the attendance who don't work directly on the SMC samplers, to give you some ideas, motivation to use SMC samplers. I try to convince you they are very nice, neat methods. And those of you in the audience who already know about it, working on it directly, the second part, I will present what I believe is a nice improvement on SMC samplers, which we call waste-free SMC. That's based on joint work with Dong, with a PhD student working with me at ENSER, Crest. He's a very, very bright PhD student, and he's in second year, but if in 1 or 2 years you need a good postdoc applicant, you could make worse choice than working with Dong. So making some publicity for him, but he deserves it. Very, very bright. It's a pleasure to work with him, and it was a very instrumental in this piece of work. Since I'm showing pictures of people, other pictures, as I said before, for those of you who were early, with Andras Fulop and Jeremy Egg, who work at ESSEC, we have a project right now. I'm trying to develop SMC methodology for econometric finance models, and we are advertising a 2-year postdoc position. If you're interested, please click on this link. I posted the link on in the chat window, all right? Or get in touch with us, okay? Right, so first part of the talks. So my friend and colleague, Omiros Papaspiliopoulos, with whom I wrote the book David mentioned, made a talk in your reading group recently where he mentioned tales from the crypt. So I really like this expression, and by which he meant things people keep saying. By saying it over and over, everybody's convinced, but it's not so clear. So for instance, Omiros has a recent paper where for a certain class of models, he finds that MCMC is not only more precise, as expected, but also faster variational Bayes. Whereas in most papers, people who say variational Bayes is way faster, scales better. So that's maybe one take from the crypt. Omiros will give a talk in January in the seminar. So I really urge you to attend this talk. I found this very interesting. Another tale is that HMC variance always mix merge better than random walk metropolis. In my experience, this might be true if you're in very high dimension and if you're sure that you really calibrate well with HMC algorithms, which turns to be quite difficult in practice. Okay. But again, people just keep saying that. And in the end, it becomes true because it keeps on being repeated. Stuff I heard too is colleagues saying, oh, but sequential Monte Carlo is nice, but it's only for hidden Markov models. I've heard that from very smart people, but are not a bit outside of our field. So there's this perception. As we see today, it's not true. And as another statement I've heard, which is I found very surprising, is you cannot use SMC because it suffers from the curse of dimensionality, right? That's not true at all, as I will show you in a moment. All right. So what I'm trying to say in this slide is that maybe the community it keeps repeating some mantra, and some of their mantra are partly true, but sometimes they are partly wrong as well. And SMC samplers might be overlooked because of some of these mantras. Okay. So let's try to clarify what I mean by SMC. Sequential Monte Carlo. That's a Monte Carlo techniques to approximate a sequence of distribution using important sampling and MCMC techniques. Right, so you might have problems where you already have a sequence of distribution you want to approximate, or you might have a problem where you want to sample from one single distribution, and then to use SMC, you have to design a sequence of distribution. If in view of the latter case, I have some recommendation for you for the sequence. Okay. So even if you have the second case, why would I recommend SMC? In a nutshell, right? The neat thing about it is that, like for instance, Randogmont Metropolis, to implement it, the only thing you need to do is you need to be able to compute pointwise the target density. Okay, so many problems, it's quite easy to do that. If you can do that, you can use SMC. Second advantage, it's these methods are easy to parallelize. By easy, I mean it is being done. I mean I have my implementation of SMC algorithms in a Python package, and by default it makes certain things in parallel, right? You get estimates of the normalizing constants of a target distribution, which typically you don't get with methods like MCMC. These methods are adaptive in the sense that they automatically adapt to the problem at hand, to some extent, of course. I will mention that, discuss that in the second part of the talk. And they're quite competitive, to be honest. And there are some recent papers I wrote with co-authors on different problems where when we compare to, for instance, NUTS or Mala, whatever, well, you could really, even if you don't take into account the parallelization, SMC samplers were really competitive, right? If you know how to make them competitive, and that will be one point I want to discuss today with you guys too. All right, so since this seminar is geared toward machine learning, I wanted to mention packed Bayesian learning, which is a pretty cool set of machine learning technique in which if you have a set of classifiers or methods indexed by a theta, in order to choose theta, you could consider this pseudo-posterior, which is made of a prior times exponential minus lambda, the risk function, right? Here, an example of a risk function for a classification task, but it's just an example. It's the average of the risk. Here is the proportion or number of points which are not properly classified, okay? Why I must, sorry, there's a typo, that should be negative actually. If y is not of the same sign as the score function here, then you have misclassified your point, and that increases the risk, okay? Right, so you could take a score function which is linear, for instance, and you end up with a method where to choose theta, you have to approximate a certain pseudo-posterior distribution, okay? This is not a likelihood, that's a pseudo-likelihood, but it's a bit intuitive why this is a reasonable pseudo-likelihood, right? The higher the risk, the less likely you want to select theta, and you need some way to approximate this distribution, right? So again, if you're familiar with the packed Bayesian approach, there's nothing new here. But as you might know in that case is that the choice of lambda is a bit critical for good performance. So what you might to do naively is to consider many different values of lambda. For each lambda, you compute the predictive score, the risk, etc. And then you could compare the different values of lambda using cross-validation, something like that, okay? So would it be nice to have a method that help you approximating, make it possible to approximate different packed Bayesian posteriors for different values of lambda? And for this, you can simply use SMC samplers, right? You just consider a grid of lambda values, right? Increasing values of lambda, and that gives you a sequence, and then you use SMC for that. So that's not a new idea. We have a paper in particular with James Ridgway and Pierre Alquier and colleagues on this kind of thing. But still, I wanted to mention this is an example in machine learning where you might want to approximate a sequence of distribution or a collection of distribution. And SMC samplers are very nice for that. Even if you wanted to say, oh no, I want to use a variation method, fine, but if you do variation based, it will be a bit more difficult to consider all the different values of lambda together. Whereas here you can really do that simultaneously. So that's very nice. Another kind of data where, sorry, another kind of situation where you have a sequence of distribution, of course, is when you do sequential learning, right? When data arrives sequentially, and then your sequence is just a sequence of Bayesian posterior, right? So here you have a model, you have a prior, and you have a likelihood of a t plus 1 first observation, and that would be your sequence, okay? But then you might be in another situation where you just have a single target distribution. Could be a Bayesian posterior distribution, it could be something else, it could be something not related to statistics, but it's some distribution defined in this way.
There's a question.
Okay.
I think it refers to the previous slide. It's what's the dimensionality of theta in the previous example?
Which example? This one?
I don't know.
Anyway, in all the example, the dimension is whatever. Could be 1 to 1,000. Right? That's not specific to the dimension. Anyway, what I'm saying is that you might. Oh, sorry, my software is acting up. Let me fit page. That might be better. Yeah. Okay. So you have some target distribution. And then by default, I will recommend this sequence of tempering distribution, where basically, okay, so this pi here could be anything, but I'm able to write it as mu of theta times some change of measure or some modification here, okay? Any density can be written in this way, right? That would be like a Bayes distribution, and that would be the density with respect to mu, if you want, right? And then what I can do is introduce again lambda values, which are increasing, and that will interpolate between mu, some prior distribution, and pi, okay? And of course, you will start at 0, and you'll stop at 1. And you'll do something which like a linear interpolation between mu and pi on the log scale, okay? And this is how it looks in practice. Here you have a tempering sequence between a normal and a mixture of two normals, okay? So on the log scale, it's just an interpolation. But it's nice because you have a default automatic way to define a sequence in case you're in a situation where you have a pi you want to simulate from, which is a target of interest. And it's hard to simulate directly, but instead you can make it, you know, for some of a distribution mu, which is more, which could be close or not to pi, and you want to move from mu to pi in some way. Okay, so that's a point that we make in the book, and that's, I'm not sure so many people know about it. And that's the answer to the people saying that there's a curse of dimensionality in SMC samplers. Actually, if you do tampering, there's no curse of dimensionality. If you consider two Gaussian distribution of dimension d, it is true that their chi-square distance is going to be exponential of d. The chi-square distance is a distance we often use when we want to talk about importance sampling, right? So the bigger this distance, typically, the more difficult it is to do importance sampling. So it is true that if you have two Gaussian in dimension d, going from one to the other in one go is exponentially difficult in the dimension. But if you allow me to add intermediate distribution, T intermediate distribution, then I'm able to design a sequence where each between pi t and pi t plus 1, you have a distance which is 2 of 1, so constant, and the number of intermediate distribution grows like square root of d, right? So the curse of the universality have just disappeared. So if I cannot say there's no curse of dimensionality in SMC, because you will see SMC is based on importance sampling, and based on the sequence of distribution you're choosing, if you choose it in a not so wise way, you could end up with a curse of dimensionality. But if at least you do tampering, and if you design your intermediate sequence in a smart way, then you can go around this curse of dimensionality. And speaking about smart design of intermediate distribution, there is some standard ways to choose automatically the sequence of lambdas. Okay, there's some well-known tricks and recipes I'm not going to describe. It's really, if you try to do it manually, you will screw it up. So don't try, just follow this kind of recipe and it will go from very bad performance to very good performance. There's no middle ground, okay?
There's a comment, I think it's really more a comment from Christian Robert, that it takes a lot of d to the half steps to produce e to the d.
It takes a lot of, say that again?
It takes a lot of square root of d steps to produce exponential of d.
I'm not sure I understand this comment, because my point specifically is that, yeah, in very large dimension, yeah,
I think I'm agreeing with you, I think.
Yeah, yeah. The point is exactly that if you go from one Gaussian to another one, it will be the importance sampling performance will be very, very poor. But if you do this, if you have square root of the intermediate distribution and you importance sampling from one to the next, as we will see, I'll explain in a moment how you do that, then this problem disappears. So anyway, sorry, Christian, I think I misunderstood your comment, but we can talk about this later. Right. So speaking of importance sampling, if you give me a sequence of distribution, one naive thing I can do is to do, I sample particles, random variables from pi naught, which is mu. Then I can go from pi naught to pi 1 by computing weights, which is proportional to the ratio pi 1 of pi naught. That's important sampling. Then I can move from pi 1 to pi 2 by multiplying all the weights by the ratio pi 2 over pi 1, and so on. That's incredibly naive, because when you do that, in the end, it will be equivalent to doing importance sampling in one go. Okay, so you're back to square one, and again, you're trying to take too big of a jump. So the cool idea in SMC samplers is that you're going to do the sequential importance sampling steps, but in between, you're going to resample the particles and you're going to move them according to MCMC steps, okay? So at time t-1, you will have particles, theta t-1 n, with weights here. Capital W is the normalized weight. And then you're going to resample according to this normalized weight, and you're going to move the resampled particles according to MCMC algorithm, method, kernel that leaves the current target pi t-1 invariant. And that's what makes the method much more interesting. Okay, without that, it's too naive, doesn't work. And with this, it works quite well. So just again, this is a point that maybe people overlook. Let me describe by default what we do typically. If the sampling space is just R power D, people use a random walk metropolis step, or K steps, I should say. They will set the covariance matrix to be some factor of the covariance matrix of the particles. And this is just a recipe. But this kind of recipe is why SMC samplers are pretty cool and work so well, because the fact that at every time you have a cloud of particles, it makes your life so much simpler when you want to make your algorithm adaptive and to make it calibrate automatically on the target of distribution, right? So if you're a bit familiar with random walk metropolis, this kind of recipe is a kind of obvious thing to do whenever you already know the target distribution. And in the context of SMC samplers, you don't know the current target, but you do have a good idea of what it looks like because you have n particles that form an empirical distribution. That's pretty cool. And again, that's the same remark as for lambdas. There's nothing terribly smart about this, but if you don't do this kind of adaptive trick, the algorithm is going to work poorly, and if you do it, it's going to work very, very well. There's no middle ground, so you have to do it. Right? This kind of adaptive trick, they are essential. Yes,
there was a couple of questions actually. I think this is refers to the previous slide. What is phi?
It's just any function.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just using this notation where I use my weighted sample to approximate an expectation of phi with respect to pi t minus 1, right? Because in Monte Carlo, that's what we do. We propagate weighted sample, which you can use then to compute moments or expectation of function. Yeah.
This one you might be already better to answer anyway, but it's how does k as a function of n affect speed of convergence?
So the beginning again, sorry?
How does k as a function of n affect speed of convergence?
But
perhaps
that's the point of a talk. Bear with me, that's the point of a talk. Exactly.
Okay.
Very, very good question. All right. Anyway, I'm talking about random walk metropolis, but you could do Gibbs steps, you could do Malag, you do HMC, etc. Okay. So, how to choose K? Exactly. Right. So this is taken from our book, chapter 16, which hopefully is a up-to-date review of SMC samplers, except it does not cover this waste-free variant that I'm going to present today. This is for logistic regression model and the SONAR dataset, which is kind of challenging. And this gives you the variability of the algorithm. So there are independent runs. We have two types of SMC samplers, but that's not very important. And you see what is here, the number of particles is constant, but I'm increasing K, the number of MCMC steps I do whenever I resample, okay? And you can see that even if I take 10, the performance of the white algorithm is still pretty bad. And I increase 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. At 60, it starts to work well. And for the other one, same story. So you could say, oh, wait a minute, okay, but you increase K, it increases the cost of the algorithm, the CPU cost. Yes, so that's the same kind of plot. So that was for the an expectation of the first component, and that's for the marginal likelihood. You can see for the marginal likelihood, your estimator is almost looks very, you have a strong bias. It's terrible. Okay, so here you really need to take K as large as 60 to have a decent performance. And this plot answers my previous point. I plot as a function of K variance times number of MCMC steps. Okay, so this variance times number of MCMC steps measure the trade-off between variance and CPU cost. And you see, for both algorithms, it's really beneficial to increase K. I mean, you do get a larger cost, but in return, you get less variance. And the optimal thing to do here is to take K to be 60. And actually, this is from the book, but I'm afraid now looking at this and what I'm going to discuss today, it's a bit truncated and we could take K to even larger, right? So in challenging application, here the dimension is already 60 and you have strong correlation between the components. You might need to take K to be very large to get good performance, okay? So that's the first point I wanted to make, which is already in the book and which is quite overlooked. And when I say overlook, I know what I'm talking about because in one of my papers, we took K to be 3 for this kind of data set. Okay, so I made the same mistake. Sorry, je suis en train de parler là.
Tu peux arrêter de crier.
Non, je peux pas. So, how do we choose K in practice? That's a difficult question. Without doing pilot runs, because that's what we do here. Should we choose K constant across iteration? There are applications where you might think it's not the best thing to do. And if you start to make K very large, like 100, 200, that looks very wasteful because you do all these MCMC steps and you never use this intermediate step. So that's what motivated us with Dan to develop this new kind of algorithm, which we call waste-free SMC, where we try to use these intermediate steps. So this is the second part of my talk, really. I'm going to get a bit more technical. And I'm going to describe this new variant, waste-free SMC, which we presented in a recent paper on arXiv. So the main idea of the algorithm is pretty simple. You still have n particles, and I'm going to take m and p to be two integers such that n equal mp. Okay, so for instance, you have 10 power 5 particles, and I take m to be 100 and p to be 1000. We will discuss later how to choose an m and p. And what I'm going to do at iteration t is that I resample only m particle, so a small subsample in a sense, resample particles. Each resample particle is going to be moved p minus 1, times through an MCMC step. Okay, and I will collect all these intermediate steps and call them particles. So you get again m times p particles. All right, because you have m resample particles, you keep them, and then you apply 1 step, 2 step until p minus 1 step. So you get m times p particles. And there's no waste because you use all these intermediate steps. All right, so essentially that's how the algorithm works. And now the two obvious question is this algorithm valid? It's not obvious because you cannot, it is not a standard SMC sampler. We are going to develop our own convergence results, for instance. And in practice, how do you actually choose m and p for a given n? So n will still be what determines your CPU budget. But for a given CPU budget, how do you choose m and p?
There's a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If K is large, one might expect the particles to have moved a lot. Are the importance weights computed in the step before still valid?
What is still valid, sorry?
Are the importance weights computed in the step before still valid?
But the thing is, when you move them a lot, when you resample the particles, you reset the weights to 1. You don't look back to these previous weights. And then you move them a lot maybe, or not so much, depends. And but you're going to obtain a set of unweighted particles. I hope this answers your question. Right. So what we found is that so again we have to choose M and P, and you could fix P, right? That would be the number of MCMC steps. And we discovered that when you do that, you can reinterpret the algorithm as a standard SMC sampler, which will be targeting a sequence of distribution that correspond to a block of size ELF. Or more precisely, by block, I mean a stationary Markov chain of length P, which will be in whose stationary distribution is pi t-1. Okay, so that's nice. And based on this, you can see, for instance, that you have an estimate of a normalizing constant, which is still unbiased. And you have some convergence results as n goes to infinity while you keep P fixed. But we quickly realized that this regime was not very convenient in practice and was not the one where you obtain best performance. Right, so what we studied instead was a regime where we keep M fixed, or maybe M grows but at a slow rate, and you have P goes to infinity. And then we develop this kind of central limit theorem, which will be kind of familiar to people working on SMC. So for instance, here, this is an expectation of function phi with respect to pi t. This is your estimate. So this is your estimate, and the difference times square root of n goes to a normal distribution. And there you have the asymptotic variance, blah, blah, blah. So people familiar with this recognize the same usual stuff, except if you look at the asymptotic variance, what is quite curious this time is that the asymptotic variance at time t does not depend on the previous iteration. It's like you forget the past, okay? So that's quite unusual. And actually, Antoine, this asymptotic variance here for the unweighted particles is the asymptotic variance of MCMC kernel MT-1. By which I mean, if I would run a long chain according to kernel MT-1, I would get a certain asymptotic variance for function phi, which is defined here. And that's exactly the one you obtain here. Okay. So it looks like at time t, you kind of forget the past, and you obtain the same asymptotic variance as if you had run your MCMC sampler based on kernel MT. Right? I hope this is clear. And then when you reweight, you get this modified asymptotic variance. Okay. So again, I would like to stress out these asymptotic variances, they don't depend on M. So that's really nice because it means you don't have to think very carefully about how to choose M. The choice of M, the performance should be robust to the choice of M. They don't depend on previous iteration. Okay. We might comment on this later. And another third point, which is really pretty useful in practice, is that the N particles can be interpreted as random variables you will obtain if you were able to run M independent stationary chain of length P. Okay? They are independent and they will be started in the stationary regime, like you have no burning. Okay? So it's like you get the performance of your Markov kernel, except you don't have burn-in. And since you have parallel chains, what is super nice is that we can use more or less standard techniques from MCMC to estimate the variance. You can adapt here to estimate the variance of your particle estimate. Okay, so maybe a side note here. In SMC, for a long time, it has been believed that it was impossible to estimate the variance from a single run. And then there's been a string of papers recently who managed to to estimate the variance, but it's based on the genealogy. But it doesn't perform very well in case your genealogical tree collapse to a single ancestor. Here, David, I think you want to ask a question, maybe?
Yeah, so it's about the previous slide. It's what is G bar on slide 22? Maybe it's
Oh, that's a very precise question. It's just I copy pasted from the paper, and that's a GT, which is the weight function at time t, divided by a certain constant to make it normalized. So I guess it must be equal to pi t divided by pi t minus 1 after you have normalized it. But let me say it in this way: if basically going from this one to this one, it's exactly the same expression you get for a standard SMC sampler. What is novel here is for the unweighted sample, you should interpret it as the same variance as you obtain for a single chain run according to kernel opt-1. But anyway. All right, so practical recommendation from this study. Of course, you have to read the paper for more details. That's a very high-level view of full results. We recommend to take, oh yes, maybe I forgot to say, people who are familiar with type of result, they might ask at this stage, wait, you need to assume something on the Markov kernels. And the answer is yes, you're right. You need, for instance, to assume that they are ergodic in some way, like uniformly ergodic. So in this waste-free SMC, in this regime where M is fixed, you heavily rely on the mixing properties of your kernels. And in the theorem and the assumption, you need assumption of the Markov kernels. Okay, you cannot help it.
There's one more question.
Yeah.
Can you comment on the slowness of growth of M? I mean, what level of growth is permissible for this result?
I think so. It works if you take M fixed, or you could take M to be n power alpha with alpha smaller than 1/2. Yeah. That's but anyway, in practice, to be honest, our recommendation is to take M quite small, like 50 or 100 and not more, because we found that within this range of value, the performance seems to depend very little on M. So this is nice. And also that's how you obtain base performance. So you gain on both fronts. The only thing is that maybe if you have a parallel computer, you might want to set M to the number of cores, because the algorithm is parallelizable, but you will be able to parallelize up to, since you're running M chains in parallel, in a sense, you can parallelize up to M distant tasks, but you can't go further. David, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so there's one more question about, do you assume the mixing of properties of the kernels to be dimension dependent? What is the assumption? I'm thinking of the scaling properties with dimension here.
No, in the theorem, we assume that just they are uniformly mixing, but the coefficient of they're just, yeah. We don't study, we get a central limit theorem with a variance, but we don't study it's a very good remark, actually. It's something we could do next, is to study how the variance we get depends on the dimension D, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
We're having lots of questions. Do you want to keep going? There's two more quite long questions. It might be a good time to do them.
Yeah, go ahead. Start with the first one. We'll see how it goes.
One would think there should be an interplay between M and the relaxation time of the M Markov chains. Clearly, for very fast chains, M small is good, but for slow chains, M large should be better to gain from the interaction among the particles.
No.
Variance analysis allows for this.
No, I like to have Duncan on my side to answer better this question, but I think he will agree with me. Basically, we find that taking M to be quite small is always safe and works well, whether you have good mixing or not so good mixing. When you have bad mixing, M small helps a lot, but when you have good mixing, you don't miss anything. But let me show you the numerical results, and we can discuss about that later. It will be helpful, I think, to discuss first the numerical experiments.
So the final question is, in practice, many estimators of the Markov chain Monte Carlo asymptotic variance require very long chains to be reasonably accurate. Does the intuition really capture what is happening in practice for highly multimodal intermediate distributions? That is, perhaps in settings where the chain does not mix quickly, if it is used.
Okay, I'll be honest with you. I don't think with waste-free we really crack the multimodal problem. And I don't think SMC sample, I think there's still work to do in this direction. Okay. And your question about the performance of a different scheme to estimate the variance of MC kernels is a good one, but it's difficult. So maybe we could discuss later when I show you the result of the numerical experiment too. Yeah. But remind me if I forget to discuss this. Okay, so let me show you some numerical results. First experiment, logistic regression. It's a bit of a running joke for me because I wrote this paper about PIMA Indians, but I'm looking at the SONAR dataset, which in our PIMA paper was considered as already more challenging for different reasons. We're going to do tampering. We're going to use random walk Metropolis. And we are going to compare algorithms with the same CPU budget. And to do so, for standard SMC, we're going to vary K, the number of MC steps, and the number of particles will be like that, 2 times 10 power 5 divided by K. And for waste-free SMC, we will vary M, and we'll take the number of particles to be like that. And it's easy to check that in both cases, the number of likelihood evaluation, which is the part that takes the most time, will be the same, essentially. A bit less for waste-free. Okay, so you can see here on this is approximating the posterior expectation of the average of all the components. Look, the performance of waste-free here depends very little on M. Whether I take M to be 50 or 800, same performance, which is pretty good. Whereas here for standard SMC, well, it looks like you need to take K to be 100 to get optimal performance. Okay, this is interesting because in the book, when I was increasing K, I was increasing the CPU cost. But here it's different because I keep the CPU cost constant. So when you increase K too much, then the number of particles become too small, and then the variance increase again. So apparently, based on this, you should take K to be 100. But if you look at this, you can see that, so now that's for the marginal likelihood of the model, okay? You can see that if I take K to be 100, you get a bias estimate essentially, okay? And you should take instead K to be 1000. So I hope to convince you with this experiment that choosing K is very challenging actually. And also, if you look at one estimate, you might get a different answer from another estimate, okay? Whereas the good thing about waste-free, it seems to work better, usually, than standard SMC. But more importantly, you get this performance, you get robustness, right? Whatever value of M, you get the same level of performance. Well, so very nice. So I think it's a big step towards making SMC sampler even more adaptive. Okay. And so going back to the question about variance. So for people who are familiar with this kind of estimators, that's actually the Olson and Duke method, which is a variant of Lee and Whiteley, where you truncate based on a lag. And you can see that, so we are looking at the performance of the variance estimates on repeated runs. And the one we use here is pretty good. It's really very little variation. And that confidence intervals is based on the empirical distribution. So it's much wider, right? So you really you're doing better, and this is not doing well, okay? So I'm not saying this is a bad method, just in this scenario, it does not seem to be working so well. We could discuss why this is the case, but in our recommended regime, which is to take M quite small, it seems that the approach we recommend for variance estimation works wonderfully. So that's pretty neat. And this is using the initial sequence estimator of, I forgot the name. Oh, crap. Sorry for that. I'm getting old. I have no memory these days. Geyer. Yeah, Charles Geyer. Sorry for that. My son is laughing, and this is my side. He's laughing at what I'm saying because I said I'm old. Yes, I'm old. Anyway, second experiment, trying to count the number of Latin squares. So this is a Latin square of order 3. It's a matrix filled with numbers 1, 2, 3, and on each row and in column, each number appears only once. Okay, and you like to count the number of Latin square of order D. And to do so, you could do SMC tampering based on a distribution like that. V is a score function. Theta is a matrix. V of theta is a score function, which will be 0 when you have a Latin square, and it will be positive otherwise. And when you take lambda t that goes to infinity this time, then lambda t is going to converge to the number of Latin squares, okay? Because pi t will converge to a uniform distribution over the set of Latin squares, okay? So you start with a uniform distribution of matrices of filled with integers, and you end up with this. And we use a Metropolis kernel where you only swap 2 entries in the matrix, so I can explain later. Anyway, again, very briefly, you find the same thing, which is you get very good performance whenever you take M not too large, whereas if you get optimal performance for a crazy value of K, okay? And this line is the true value, the log number of Latin squares. So I'm not going all the details. Oh, you see 5 is even outside here. That's kind of funny, right? So it can be very strongly biased if you take K to be too small. Okay. And we have a third numerical experiment in the paper based on Horton probabilities. What is nice about this one is that the MCM system we consider this time is a Gibbs sampler. Okay, and this is, I forgot to mention on the paper, this is based on the SMC sampler that James Ridgway developed in a paper in 2015. Anyway, if you're interested, I could show you, but essentially the numerical results go in the same direction. Right, so to conclude this waste-free SMC algorithm, I think you get the same advantages as standard SMC, right? So that's quite automatable. I believe it's a word. I hope I didn't make it up. So it's you have, the thing is with SMC, to be honest, it has a lot of things to choose. Yeah, like the target, the sequence of targets distribution, the kernels you choose, or you calibrate them. But on the other hand, you have all the recipes you can find in literature that if you follow them for different kinds of problems, you end up with a method which is completely automatic for you, hopefully. You can estimate normalizing constant unbiasedly. The method is still parallelizable, a bit less because you can parallelize up to n cores, not up to n. Because in the standard SMC sampler, most operation, you treat the n particles independently. Here, it's just the m sets of particles that are treated independently. But I believe waste-free to be even more automatable because you get rid of this choice of K problems. And you get this extra perk, which is very nice, which is you have a pretty good, pretty reliable way of estimating the variance of any particle estimate, which I think is pretty neat. That's a big advantage. My general conclusion for those who are not familiar with SMC samplers, I hope I managed to convince you to try them. I have this Python package you can try, and if I have, well, maybe it's too late, but if you go to this web page, I have some, I developed some tutorials on which are Jupyter notebooks. And basically, you will see that if you define the models, you can compute the likelihood, then immediately you can run an SMC sampler with many choices taken by default for you. Okay, so don't just take my word for it. Go to download the package, install it, play with it, and if you break anything, let me know. But I don't think you will. All right, so if you want to learn more about Wave3 SMC, this is our paper. It has been submitted on arXiv a few weeks ago. If you want more general, up-to-date introduction to SMC samplers, you could look at chapter 16 of our book with Omiros, which has just been released. It's very likely you can get the PDF from your institution. I mean, most institutions have a subscription with Springer Link, and then you go to the web page, you click PDF, and you get it, right? So I'm making some publicity, but it's I'm not trying to make money. I'm just very happy if people use this book because it took us a lot of time to write it, and I hope it might be useful in introducing SMC algorithms and especially SMC samplers. Okay, and I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicola. There's a question. In SMC, are there examples where the distribution of interest is a mixture of different temper distributions the SMC visits on the way to the final value of lambda?
So the target is already a mixture of temper distribution, right? Did I get that?
Yeah, maybe the question is, I can read it again. In SMC, are there examples where the distribution of interest is a mixture of the differently tempered distributions the SMC visits on the way to the final value of lambda?
Not I'm aware of, but in a sense, my Pack Bayesian example at the beginning is a bit like that, right? Because in the Pack Bayesian case, you are genuinely interested in all these different distributions, which are tempered versions of each other, right? So, and more generally, in terms of Bayesian robustness, whenever you're not completely sure about your model, there are some people who recommend to take the likelihood power something, and you like to consider simultaneously different models corresponding to different exponents, then SMC samplers is your friend. You will manage to explore sequentially all this distribution. It will be much faster than just trying to approximate only one of them using whatever method.
I can maybe ask questions. Well, I think we probably have some more. We saw with like moving from HMC to NUTS, it really allowed Stan to become really automated. Are we going to see the same with like SMC to Wave3? Can we put this into Stan or some other package and make it like a really default algorithm? Is it that mature or?
Well, I'm not such a great programmer, so in terms of software, I'm not pretending I'm able to produce something as mature as Stan. But to answer your question, to use software like Stan, basically you have to describe your model in a text file, and then it runs a certain method for you. Okay. Whereas if you want to use SMC samplers or Wave3 SMC for many problems, it will amount. So that's what I wanted to. That's what I said at the beginning. If you're in a standard problem where you want to sample from a distribution of R power D, and the target distribution is unimodal, the only thing you need to do is to provide a function that computes the posterior density up to a constant. Yes, and that's what maybe I just stopped shared my screen. I will share it again, but the complete desktop, and I can show you the where is it? Yes. So this is the GitHub page of a package I was mentioning, which we developed along the book. And if you go here you have the documentation. And I hope that I think the most useful part of the documentation is these notebooks. And if you look at the notebook on SMC samplers, you can see I try to do something a bit like NUTS. Here, I define a toy model where I say the density of YT given theta on the previous time points is as this log density. And that's enough to run your SMC sampler. Here, I have a way to define the prior, and then look at this. That's how you can run one type of SMC sampler. Okay, so you can either directly provide a function that evaluates the log posterior or the log prior on the log likelihood, or define things in this way in the package. But of course, there will be ways to make it even more automatic and more user-friendly and much smarter. But I'm not pretending to, in that respect, to be able to compete with more professional software like NUTS.
There's a kind of question that's a comment saying the question about Stan-like software, you can look into libb, which is similar to Stan but uses SMC.
Yes,
still being developed.
But wait a minute, I need to check, but I think libd was developed more for state space models, and you want an automatic way to do particle filtering. And I hope I'm not saying I'm not wrong here, but I believe that libd is not really geared toward the SMC samplers. But I apologize in advance if that's not true, but I would think it's yeah, libd and the next version of this software, which has a different name, I forgot the name of Birch, but maybe they are geared towards state space models. So it's a different focus, really.
Okay, so
but that's very good software. I mean, of course, but just different focus. Yeah.
Do you think this approach is better than a similar approach that would introduce an additional P tempering steps without selecting or resampling, or that this approach is mainly easier to tune or more robust?
What we are 100% sure is that it's easier to tune and more robust. We have the impression it's also working better most of the time, and we wanted to prove it. And it did not turn out to be easy to. What would be great, it would be able to prove that the asymptotic variance you get when you do waste-free, in the kind of regime I've described, when M is fixed or grows slowly, is always smaller than when you do a standard SMC sampler with the same kernels. But we don't have this result at the moment. It's not clear how to get it. And I'm sure it holds in complete generality. We will need some assumption, but yeah. So to be entirely honest, we are not 100% sure that it is going to outperform in any situation standard SMC samplers. And the point about intermediate distribution, the thing is, in standard SMC samplers, you can add intermediate distribution. That's true. But my impression is that in waste-free, you don't need to do that anymore, because as I showed you, the asymptotic variance don't depend on the previous time steps, right? So one way to interpret this result is that waste-free makes it easier to move quickly in the space of temperatures, for instance, if you do tempering, right? You can progress more quickly and more reliably when you do waste-free. Okay, but of course, you could instead doing a standard SMC sampler do tempering and add more extra intermediate steps. But then you're back with the problem of it's not so obvious to choose. Instead of choosing K, you have to choose the criterion to decide the number of intermediate distribution, etc., etc. So, yeah.
There's
I think that
two questions. Sorry, there's two questions / comments.
That was my first good question, number one. I was expecting. There's also a good question number 2. Go ahead, sorry.
From Robin Ryder, Birch X libb is now more than just state space models, but the description of models is still less complete than Stan's. So
Okay.
just a comment. And the other one is from Christoph Andrew, which is like humorously written begin advertisement. In terms of the dependence of T on the dimension D and the mixing properties of M, we have studied this in the context of AIS and yield importance sampling. No interaction, the following with James Ridgway. There's a link. I can share the link if you want. Parasol.
Yes. That's true. Yeah.
I'll put that into chat. Oh no.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessary actually.
That's true. That so if you do a standard SMC sampler and you don't resample and you they consider some asymptotic regime in D the dimension. Yeah. Well, we really don't do that in our paper on West 3. So that's I'm trying to be careful about the impact on dimension because we have not studied this at all in the paper. Yeah.
Actually, I mean, I think AIS is a method that maybe machine learning people are more likely to know, or ones that knew the literature 15 years ago.
That might be the case.
The main difference is the interaction, I suppose.
Yeah, in an really important sampling, you don't resample at all. Yeah. And my experience is resample really helps, unless maybe you have a very large number of intermediate distribution. So I think it's related to our previous comments about, yes, I mean, there are different ways to make all this algorithm work. I'm just saying this is a variant of SMC samplers that seems quite pretty convenient to use because it's robust. And also we have this estimate of the variance, which is nice.
Yeah, it seems really important. So there's a comment from Matthew Carter saying that the University of Liverpool as part of big hypotheses is going to integrate SMC into Stan. Maybe, I don't know if it's this variant, but that's interesting.
That will be great if it happens, yes. Yeah. I'm not in touch right now with the Stan people, but if they want to do it, that would be great. Again, what's missing maybe from, I don't know, I'm not following very closely what people do these days in the development of Stan, but yes, that could be nice, for instance, to get estimate of normalizing constant for their models, I think.
Yeah.
The other thing to be said about all this is that it's always very nice to have several methods to compare for a given problem, because it's also more or less the only way to debug your algorithms. Yeah, in numerical computation, and especially stuff related to Bayesian computation, it's really hard to debug anything. And it's very likely you have introduced some small bug and you will be able to detect it only if you implement several methods. And same remark for approximation like variational Bayes expectation propagation. They are very nice and I've used them, and I have some papers where we use this and I really like it. It's just at some point you also want to be sure about their performance, and for this you need to compare with Monte Carlo algorithms. So even only for this motivation, it's nice, I think, to develop SMC samplers or related algorithms.
Okay, that seems to be all the questions. There's some thank yous in the chat, and and there's still 90 people here, so thanks for thanks for staying.
Thanks a lot for your attention. I know it's hard to follow people, to follow talks in this way, so I appreciate it. Thanks everyone.